happy Tuesday. It is Tuesday, August the 13th, the 223rd day of the year. There are 143 days left in the year 2024, and welcome to another edition of Tuesdays with Tom. Man, the Olympics were out of sight. I hope you got to see at least some of it. The closing ceremonies and the setup for 2028 in Los Angeles was very special. But what was easily noticeable throughout was the racial diversity of the teams that represented the United States of America. I'm going to say that again, the United States of America. That diversity you witnessed was born out of merit. That's right, merit. The athletes had to earn their way there, earn their way. I stress earn because politics and haters have instilled fears and false notions that under diversity, black and brown people of color under diversity programs were getting something that they didn't deserve, something they were not qualified for. Thus, the orchestrated effort to dismantle diversity programs. The assumptions being the only way to achieve diversity is by bringing on people of color who had lesser skill or qualifications than whites. As I said many times and will continue to say, diversity is not about lowering standards. It is about widening the opportunities to make sure an organization gets the best talent available. It's about making sure an organization reaches one's comfort zone, a personal network to look for talent and potential in areas that might be unfamiliar. It's also about looking beyond one's friendships, social circles, and cliques. The Olympic Games were about winning, period. Thus, they searched for the best talent available. That's diversity. Diversity showed its value when you look on the makeup of Team USA and the medals they won. It may not be called diversity, and I will keep on hitting on this because diversity will rise again. And they may not call it diversity this time. It may be under a court order consent decree and will probably be under some new name. But if the architects pulling it all together are serious about it, it should be all about winning. Our G-list guest today is Ron Busby. Mr. Busby is the president and CEO of the U.S. Black Chambers, Inc., a native of Oakland, California. He has dedicated himself to the empowerment of the Black community. We look forward to that discussion and just what that means. Our show today, of course, is sponsored by the Best Girl Consulting Firm. So let's hear from Best Girl.
Best Girl is a consulting firm that provides customized leadership, access and inclusion, public relations, communications, and organizational consulting services. Clients include Fortune 500 companies, utilities, higher education institutions, small businesses, and associations. Best Girl's team of consultants, led by Joyce Gilly-Gossam, Emily Hedrick, and Sean Jones, partners with business and education clients to promote organizational effectiveness, communication, motivation, and leadership, with always an impact on the bottom line. Best Girl's customized consulting services include strategic planning, corporate communication, executive coaching, fundraising, and economic development.
Best Girl customizes the solution that fits your needs. So let's go to our roundtable regulars, Barbara Wallace Edwards and Michael Walker. Good morning, Barbara Wallace Edwards. How are you?
Good morning, Tom. I'm doing well. Thank you. How are you this morning?
I'm doing very well. How's your world? What's happening in your world?
Everything's good, Tom, except, you were talking about the Olympics, and I really enjoyed the Olympics this year, but I have a little problem with them. The Olympics officials are asking for Jordan Childs to return her bronze medal for the floor routine. She came in third place there. And the fact that they're asking for the medal back had nothing to do with her performance. They're saying because they scored her wrong, her total overall score was wrong. They found the error, corrected it, and then that placed her in third place. Well, now they're saying her coaches had to notify them within 1 minute of the score being awarded, whether it was right or wrong. They're saying that the coaches went beyond that 1 minute time limit in recognizing the fact that her score was incorrect. So even though they corrected it and that was her correct score, they now want the bronze medal back because the coaches didn't submit the error in time. The coaches are saying they did. They got videotape saying that they did. So it's time stamped. And so that's a big issue, and I don't know how they're going to resolve it. But at this point,
I guess I never even thought about this, but the people are from all over the world. So where are the judges from?
I don't know. I think it's the judges are probably from all over. I assume. I'm not sure.
You would think, yeah.
I don't know.
It's interesting.
Very interesting.
Okay.
So this really throws a, kind of a dark light on the Olympics, even though it turned out well. I think it was, great events, and everyone seemed to really have enjoyed themselves. I don't think there was any major issues there, but this is one thing that I think is
to pull out something like this and not have any issues is almost a miracle.
Absolutely.
You expect more.
Yeah, right. And normally something major does happen during the Olympics, but this year I think they avoided that. And I don't know if the French just prepared themselves and did a better job, or if everyone was just more unified this year. But it did. It came off without a hitch.
I thought the setup to Los Angeles was great.
It was. Yes.
Really
I
cool.
enjoyed the closing. I didn't watch all of it, but that part that I did watch, I really enjoyed that.
That's great. Let's get Michael on here. Good morning, Michael Walker.
Good morning, TG. Good morning, Barbara. How are the two of you doing this morning?
Doing well. Thank you, sir.
What's happening in your world?
Well, there's a couple things I'd like to kind of piggyback off what both of you said. Barbara, I addressed the Jordan Child situation. It was the judges of the IOC that misjudged her, miscalculated her score. Mm-hmm. And when the American coach went and filed her inquiry about it, like you said, it was time stamped 47 seconds, right? Because you have a minute to do so. And so they have a video showing it was 47 seconds when she first approached the table, then went back again with 55 seconds ago. So we all know a minute is 60 seconds.
Absolutely.
So there were two interactions there.
Right.
Yeah. And so that's when they took the gold from the bronze medal from the Romanian girl and gave it to Jordan Childs. Right. And she won. So they're coming back now and trying to say, well, it wasn't done in the proper time and that she has to give it back so they can give it to the Romania girl. I must say that hats off to the Romanian athlete who said athletes should not be penalized for the mistakes of the judges.
I agree.
Which is true.
I agree.
If you look at this situation, I really feel like somebody's being protected here, the person that screwed up, because if the judge miscalculated, and there's no debating the issue that it's been miscalculated. Right. So that they want to concentrate on, well, did they get the inquiry? We know we screwed up, but did they get it in time?
Yeah.
We're going to put expiration on it,
Right.
In this particular case, I think they should just leave Jordan Childs with her medal. If you want to give something to the Romania girl, give her one as well for the day, but don't punish either one of them because you, the person in charge, is supposed to be the judge, screwed up.
I agree. And there are people on social media saying, don't give it back, Jordan. Don't run. Don't give it back. So
I think she ought to pull the Donald Trump and say it's rigged.
Exactly. Exactly.
Wow. So Michael, I asked Barbara, where are the judges from? You said it was a Romanian judge.
No, it wasn't a Romanian judge, a Romanian athlete. I think the IOC, which is, the International Olympics Committee, they're the ones that put the judges in. So they're probably, as Barbara said, from all over and based on a particular sport. And usually a lot of the judges are people that have been in that sport themselves that they have.
I don't know if they ever publicize the judges' names anywhere. Maybe they are, but I've never seen them. And maybe because I haven't searched for them. So they probably don't publicize them just for reasons like this. They don't want their names to get out there.
Yeah. And Tom, I want to respond to your opening monologue a little bit here about the Olympics. It's something that I found, and you talked about DEI, and everyone that listens to this show know where we all stand on that. I read an article that just didn't make any sense to me. and I'll paraphrase here, Catholic Bishop Robert Barron says that the Society of Athletic Excellence on display at the Olympic Games run contrary to the perception with diversity, equity, and inclusion. And what he means by that, and this is where I thought it got a little bit weird. He wanted to use Simone Biles as an example to say how DEI is really not needed, in other words. He said that Simone Biles, being the greatest gymnast of all time, during her rise, there were a lot of people excluded because she made team after team after team and beat her competition. And those people were excluded for her to get to the point. He's trying to say that, she had a level playing field and she was able to win as a result of that. And trying to say if DEI had been involved, this never would have happened. And you can't draw the conclusion to the same thing. We all know that sports, for the most part, is settled on the field itself.
Exactly.
Okay, but if you want to talk about DEI, we can very much go back to the point where there were no black athletes allowed to play quarterback because they were deemed not smart enough to do so, right? And can't process information. And so for many times, there needed to be DEI in there, but the DEI that came in was when one black quarterback or an athlete that just happened to be a quarterback showed out on the field. And they determined, well, if we want to win, we need to get some black quarterbacks in here. But for him to try to draw a conclusion with Simone Biles, I think is totally out of this world. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It's just trying to say that this is a reason why we don't need DEI. Not everybody's playing sports to make a living. So when we look in corporate America and how these decisions are made, or when we look at small businesses and the opportunity that's afforded to them, that's where DEI comes in. So don't try and mix it up with athletics, Bishop.
Michael, there's so many people that do not understand DEI. I mean, totally don't have a clue. They don't even, and maybe they don't even try to understand it. They just assume they do when they see the letters DEI. But they don't understand it and don't have a clue how it all fits in, how it works, what started it, none of that. And again, I don't think they even tried to attempt to.
Well, that's true. And that's because they tried to take it and make it something negative.
Exactly.
It's what they tried to do. And the way you make something negative is you associate the word minority, people of color, or black to it. All of a sudden, it takes on a negative tone. Mm-hmm. And that's what they've done with DEI. And many times on the show, we have said DEI include people with physical disabilities, okay? People that were victim of circumstances and they have something that causes them to be disabled. That's where diversity, equity, and inclusion come in, and also from diverse backgrounds. But to try to take this and put it on the field of athletics, it leaves a lot to be desired. I'm quite honestly, I'm ashamed of the bishop to try to do that. But I know he thought it was smart. I got something I want to ask you. Because you are a bicyclist and you ride your bike quite often. You're infamous for that. There's a lot of bike lanes going up in metropolitan areas and stuff. And here in Atlanta, there's an awful lot. And, a lot of times, especially on the weekends, early in Sunday morning, Saturday morning, I'm riding, especially on a not too travel road. But there are 2-lane roads in suburban Atlanta. And these bicyclists get up in 20, 30 in the pairs and they're riding on the 2-lane roads and traffic needs to get by. Yeah. And so they're holding up traffic. And then you know how 2-lane roads are the way we grew up as far as driving. You're not supposed to pass on the double lines. Right. So you're in that situation where you just got to sit back there, drop your speed down to 5 miles an hour or however fast they're going so that you don't run over them. And then you're trying to look for a way to get around them and go on with your day. It's causing some problems, but even more so in the metropolitan area. There was a state representative here who was arrested because he had a drink or two or what have you, but he was driving down a section of Memorial Road where they put in these new bike lanes, and these new bike lanes are wide enough for cars now, and they're not really marked. He went in the bike lane and hit a cyclist. The cyclist was not injured to the point of, fatality or anything like that, but he got arrested and was charged with DUI, and they're saying that it's causing confusion because the bike lanes are not clearly marked, and because of the size of people in cars think they're for cars. You know how you have lanes separated where there's a lot of traffic here and you can get in this lane and go down like an express lane. And I think people are getting confused. What do you feel about bike lanes interacting with traffic and stuff?
Well, I'm probably not the best person to comment on, because where I ride is strictly neighborhood and there are no lanes, but there's no whatever. But I would not get out on the highway and ride in a bike lane. I just would. I would be nervous about that. Not just the, but I feel but to your point, it's like people riding riding bikes. Down here, they drive golf carts through the neighborhood. And that just irks the hell out of me. Get out of my way, man. You're going 5 miles an hour. Move over. Right. And then yesterday, the kids, I guess school started back. So the kids from the school, I don't know if it's a cross-country team or whatever. But like you just said, there were 10, 12, 15 kids, and half of them in the middle of the street. And it's like, y'all must think this car won't hurt you.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think maybe there's a way to have strict enforcement, but I think I'm surprised. There was a lady who was driving a golf cart and she tried to go across Highway 98, which you wouldn't even try to walk across Highway 98 here. And she got hit by a car. And I don't know how seriously she was injured. She was injured, but it's like, to me, it's like that was her fault.
Right.
I mean, come on. So I mean, I agree with you. I don't know that I would ride in Atlanta. I don't know. It's such a fun thing to do, is ride a bike, but you just got to be so careful. Yeah. I don't know. Building the bike lanes is a good thing, but you got to allow for the fact that it's a road with cars.
Right. And they have to respect that and stay in their bike lanes. Like Michael said, Saturday mornings, Sunday mornings, there's groups of 30, 40 bike riders out there in groups, and they can't all fit in that bike lane because they're trying to go around each other and ride together and talk to their friends as they're riding. And so they tend to cover the entire road, and that is definitely dangerous. So they need to be held accountable for that.
I agree.
Most definitely.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Michael, Barbara, you got something else?
I've got something else, Tom, that I wanted to bring up. I don't know if you all saw the news that the family of Isaac Hayes is suing Donald Trump in his campaign for continued and unauthorized use of the Sam and Dave hit song, "Hold On, I'm Coming." I don't know if you've seen any of the Trump rallies and his campaigns, but they're using that song repeatedly. And on Sunday, Isaac Hayes III, Isaac Hayes, the icon's son, has said that the Grammy award-winning Isaac Hayes, they don't want his music used by Donald Trump in his campaign at all. So the family is actually asking Trump to pay them $3 million because he used that particular song over 130 times in his campaign and in his rallies.
Why would you do that? I mean, if we were going to use "Hold On, I'm Coming" on this show, we know we'd have to get permission from somebody.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't.
And they tend to think they can get away with anything, I think. And so I looked it up, and there have been over 36 artists, musicians, or family, the actual families of some of these musicians who passed on, who've asked the Trump campaign not to use their songs and not to use their music in his campaigns or his rallies. So he's running out of music he can use after a while. I don't know what he's going to be doing. We got the list of 36, and that's the list that I found. It may be even more than that.
Yeah, well, I'm sure he'll say it's Joe Biden's fault. Joe Biden told him to use it. So, anything else, Michael? You got some? Barbara, you got something else?
Well, yeah, I want to kind of switch the conversation to a little bit regarding healthcare and what have you, since that's one of my chosen endeavors. There is research going on now where additive manufacturing, which is also known as 3D printing, is changing the face of healthcare. And you've heard of 3D printing where these guys can kind of print out a gun and stuff, and this fake gun and stuff, but it's a gun that can be used. It's a plastic gun. Well, they are now saying utilizing 3D printing, healthcare physicians, they can now customize patient specific medical models, such as the human anatomy. If somebody's getting ready to go in for a very delicate surgery, they can use 3D printing to create the anatomy of that person and then figure out how to use robotics to go in and make a very precision type of surgery without any risk. Now, that's what's on the horizon. They're working on that. And like, for instance, you see a lot of people, like especially that come back from the war and they've had a leg amputated and they have to be fit for a prosthesis. We've all heard about people needing a prosthesis. And it's a situation where it doesn't really fit. It causes a lot of issues and stuff like that. That's what they call off-the-shelf prosthesis, and then they make it fit. Well, now with this type of technology, they can take the person's limb that needs a prosthetic and design one that's custom for them now so that it would fit by using this 3D printing. And so that's a lot of stuff that they're looking at right now, which could really help out from a healthcare standpoint. And it could cut down on a lot of these so-called malpractice or people where they go in and they screw up and do stuff like that in surgery now. So they've got a few more tests to run and everything, but people are working on that. That would be a great movement in the way of healthcare from a future
great,
standpoint.
Michael. And that should actually reduce the cost of healthcare as well, I would think. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I got one more thing for you guys. We talked a little bit about the show, before the show. And since our focus today is Black Chamber, which I assume is business oriented, I want to just read you some statistics about Shaquille O'Neal. Shaquille O'Neal owns 155 Five Guys restaurants. He owns 17 Auntie Anne's. He owns 150 car washes, 40 24-hour fitness centers, a movie theater, and several Las Vegas clubs. And then I read this, and after I was reading this, and then people commented on it, and they were criticizing him for owning the businesses. And it's like, well, don't you see how that translates to jobs, man?
Exactly.
Man, providing jobs all over the country. And I don't know. Some people shouldn't be allowed to comment.
How can you find anything negative in that, Tom? I mean, what would they even be complaining about?
Some people can find something negative in everything.
Wow.
They just didn't think that, that was a good thing. Who knows? I think it's awesome.
It is awesome.
I've been a business guy for 37 years. Michael, you've been in business a long time. And Barbara, you worked for the big corporations. You know how tough it is. And you know that you do something like this, man, you're providing jobs for people.
Absolutely.
Not necessarily Black jobs.
Right. You know, he said any job is a black job, Tom. So I don't know.
He said those people coming across the border were taking the black jobs.
Yeah, but you know, at the Black Journalists Convention on stage, and they asked him what is a black job. He said black job is any job. So yeah.
Well, you know,
That's a
for
new
Trump,
definition for it.
for Trump to have his history of making what could be perceived as racist comments and what have you and stuff, he's really an interesting character, you know.
That's interesting is unique.
You're talking about dichotomies, you know, but his nephew, Fred Trump III, has written a book called All in the Family about Trump. And he talked about the time when Trump's car was vandalized and that Trump came out and said, see what the ends did using the N word and stuff. That's who's responsible for it. And his son was like, I mean, his nephew was like, you don't even know who did it. And
Right.
you're saying this, you know. And there was a clip the other day of Trump holding up a little black baby somewhere, you know. And I was like, what? And they did a quick flash of that. But to bring my point home, Trump has now gotten on this kick about crowd sizes at rallies.
Yeah.
And he's making false claims of his crowd versus Kamala Harris crowd. And to drive home the point, he compared his speech at, I think, January 6th or somewhere to Martin Luther King's speech, I Have a Dream.
Yes.
And saying that Martin Luther King and I, we were in the same type real estate. You know, I had a large crowd, probably larger, bigger than his, and all of this stuff. I'm like, you got to be kidding me, man. You know, and then he wants to say that he was in the same area code with Martin Luther King when he was speaking before a crowd and saying, well, he gave a good speech and stuff, but, you know, we've had large crowds too, probably bigger than his. And there's no documentary. You're talking about the documentation or time-stamped video. The video shows there's a vast difference
The
in
pictures, the video, everything shows that there's a vast difference in the size of those crowds. And I don't know how he could let that come out of his mouth to say that his was larger. I mean, the man just anything slips out of his mouth. He don't care. I mean, nothing has to be true. He just says stuff and hope it sticks.
You're talking about snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. This is a case in point of how to do it. You attack the most popular governor in the Southeast, in Brian Kemp of Georgia. You attack and lie on crowd sizes. You compare your crowd size to Martin Luther King. This man is doing everything he can to screw up the election so he can say what? It was stolen.
Yeah.
And he stole it from himself.
The Democrats.
Right.
Okay, well, let's move on. Sean's got a minute for us, and then we'll get to our G-List guest. Sean, you got a minute out there?
Good morning to everyone joining in with us. My name is Shantia Jones, and this is Got a Minute. Summer break is coming to an end. The kiddos are heading back to school and getting in their last thrills and chills before they do. Do you like amusement parks? That means roller coasters, funnel cakes, walking, and lots of it. Well, on this day in 1961, amusement park lovers head for the thrills as Six Flags over Texas has its soft opening. Located on 212 acres in Arlington, Texas, Six Flags was the first to feature log flume and mine train rides, and later the first 360-degree looping roller coaster, modern parachute drop, and man-made river rapid rides. The park also pioneered the concept of all-inclusive admission price. Until then, separate entrance fees and individual ride tickets was the standard. During its opening year, a day at Six Flags would cost $2.75 for an adult and $2.25 for a child. A hamburger sold for 50 cents and a soda set the buyer back, you guessed it, a dime. Take me to this place. Thank you all for joining in. My name is Shantia Jones. and this has got a minute.
Thank you, Sean. Okay, we're going to move on now, Holly, to our G list guest. Hollywood's got the A list, and here on Tuesdays with Tom, we have the G list. So our G list guest today is Mr. Ron Busby. He's president and CEO of the United States Black Chambers, Inc. He brings a lot of business management skills to that position. He's also a former successful business owner. So let's welcome Mr. Busby, and you guys may want to ask him some questions. Good morning, sir. Oh. All right. Well, Sean, can you bring us up on what's happening? Technical trouble. Okay. Well, let's just continue our discussion here, and we'll come back to it when the technical issues are solved. We have technical issues from time to time.
While we're waiting, Tom, to fill the time space, we were talking earlier before the show started about some of the actors. We started talking about Tom Cruise, and I made the comment that a lot of those short actors, they have to stand on a box of stuff, and they don't want them to be in film with people that are really tall. Tom, and you said that when you go for an audition with people like Tom Cruise and Mel Gibson, the first thing they want to know is how tall you are so that you don't overshadow them. I came across something that's similar to that, but it's not exactly the same, but it's a little bit. You can draw the conclusion. They found this species of frogs over in, I think it's in New Zealand or Australia, where the female frogs will eat the male frog, grab him, kill him, and eat him if his mating call was not one that the female frog liked. In other words, during mating seasons and the frogs are making their calls, and if the call comes across as being weak and not masculine enough, the female frog would eat him, drag him back into the hole, and just eat him whole. This guy that was doing the story said that he was out and he was studying. He kept hearing these squeals and high-pitched voices, and that's what he came across. This large female frog had grabbed this smaller male frog by the leg and was trying to drag him back to a hole so that they could devour him and stuff. But on the other side, the male frog was trying to get away. He was a little fella, and he was trying to get away and stuff. He finally was able to get away. And he said, but if it's a male frog that has a deeper resonating voice that comes across as very masculine, in control, then the opposite happen. She will mate with him and will not try to eat that frog.
Wow.
And I'm like, man, it's tough out there. So you talk about little guys with bigger women and stuff.
Oh, that's funny.
That is funny.
Barbara, you got something else?
I do. I want to get back on the topic of Blacks in business. I want to congratulate Miss Shakia Miller. She is the first Black woman to set up a degree-granting technical college in Alabama. She is the driving force behind the establishment of One-on-One Technical and Theological College in Phoenix City, Alabama. It officially opened their doors in June of 2024. The college plans to offer a variety of courses tailored to market demands. And that is unheard of. I think that's she's the first Black female to actually open a technical college in the state of Alabama, especially here in 2024. So she should definitely be congratulated for that.
Well, yeah. Shut it down.
We have to track her down and have her come on the show and talk about that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Why don't you get up with her?
I will.
That would be great. Michael, you got something else?
I do. There is a study going on where this guy, he's a scientist, but he's also is known as a futurist. And what he's talking about is human singularity, saying the coming together of humans and artificial intelligence and what have you. And they're saying that they are looking at ways where they can bring human intelligence into a relationship with artificial intelligence to make the human smarter. And the way that they do that is they would insert these little bitty nanos of stuff into the bloodstream of the human that's already been programmed, where you know how we grew up having to do math in the head, you would always do multiplication and division in your head. Well, they're saying by utilizing this technology, they will be able to do very high complex mathematical problems and solve them in a matter of seconds and stuff. So
Wow.
they're talking, and this guy has been saying this for a while. They're saying that this is closer than ever right now. And when you think about it, a lot of the AI stuff is primarily it's software and stuff that's done by humans anyway,
Mhm.
after research and built in. So it's interesting to see where technology is going to take us. My concern with that is, what if you go and get that injected into you and you end up getting some type of AI intelligence that is not quite as smart, or
Mhm.
not able to see the problem with artificial intelligence. They have no emotions, in other words. So
Right.
everything is black and white. And in life, not everything is black and white. There's some decisions that have to be made in spite of what the blackness is and the whiteness of it, not racial. I'm talking about inside the lines and
Right.
stuff. And then you get a human in there. Now we're going to turn people into robots and
Robots.
stuff.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, yeah, which could be scary.
Very
Yeah,
scary.
yeah, I agree. How far do we need to go?
Right. I mean, we're talking to at that rate, Michael. Nobody's gonna need to go to college. They just go get an injection, or go to school. Period. Just get an injection, and then you can just go to work because you'll know everything, but have no emotions in the process. It's
Well,
scary.
yeah, that's where they're going. And talking about the Olympics, Tom, what do you think about LeBron James at age 39? He was awarded the MVP of
What?
the Olympics.
Okay.
And, it was a great game between the US men and the French, you know.
Yes.
Uh, but at 39, LeBron won the MVP. In my opinion, I think it was justified, because if you watch the way they played without him in the lineup and taking control as the point guard, or the point forward is really what it is. I'm not so sure they would have won it all, because he seemed to me to be the glue that held the whole thing together.
Okay. And I didn't watch a lot of the basketball, so I can't
Well,
really
I will
say.
tell you the last game that the U.S. ended up beating France, and France was trying to come at them, and they played a great game. Steph Curry ended up, I think, with 24 points. He hit about 8 threes
Right.
in
In
the
a row.
last quarter. And throughout
Right.
this tournament, everybody's been saying, where did Steph Curry's shot go? And so he only had 2 games that he really got off and stuff. And Stephon Marbury is saying that he doesn't think LeBron should have gotten the MVP trophy. It should have been Stephon, because of his performance in the last game. And, it's a whole body of work with a tournament.
Right.
Is
Not just
is
one
what
game.
That's just one game.
Right.
Because Steph averaged, like, I think his average was somewhere like about 7 or 8 points for the entire tournament, where LeBron averaged 14 points, I think about 8 assists and 7 or 8 rebounds a game. He even had a triple double. So I think that that's well deserved by LeBron.
I was gonna say I think that warrants him winning the MVP.
I just saw
Definitely.
a little bit when they played Serbia, and Serbia had, when I turned it on, Serbia had a big lead, and then they got happy. They were shooting. They were shooting just like, why would you shoot that shot, man? You're trying to win. You ain't gonna win like that.
Right.
And okay, so I think we've got our G-list guest. So Sean, are you gonna bring him in? Okay, good morning, sir. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I'm trying to make this work. Actually, I'm on my cell phone. I'm not on my laptop. So hopefully this is clear enough for you guys to see and hear.
Oh yeah, we see you and hear you well.
All right, good.
So tell us about the chamber to get started.
All right, and I only have a few minutes, but I appreciate the opportunity. Again, good morning, listeners and viewers across the country. My name is Ron Busby. I'm the president and CEO of the U.S. Black Chambers Inc., headquartered here in lovely Washington, D.C. We just celebrated our 15th year anniversary. We were founded right after the election of President Barack Obama, March of 2009. When we began, we had 6 chambers. Today, we have over 175 chambers on the continent of the United States, Africa, Canada, as well as France. We were founded on what we call our 5 pillars. First one being advocacy. That's the reason that we're here in Washington, D.C. I remember taking a double-decker bus tour during my first visit here, and I saw the license plates that literally read in Washington, D.C., taxation without representation. And I thought to myself, that's what Black businesses have been. Historically, we've been paying into a system that has really not represented our interests. And I say that because if you look, and I've heard a little bit of the conversation that has been going on this morning with your team there, we talk a lot about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I say none of those things matter to me as a Black Chamber president, because when we talk about minority programs and we talk about programs that are there to really support minority communities, it ain't Black folks. It has never been about Black businesses. For the first time in this country's history, before electing the current president, Biden, we asked him for 3 things: intentionality, transparency, and accountability. And what we heard was right after the election, he went to Tulsa, Oklahoma, the birthplace of what we know as Black Wall Street. And for the first time in this country's history, we disaggregated the numbers, meaning the country spends on average $960 billion each year on products and services. We've heard year after year, election after election, conversation after conversation about the diversity spend from the United States. What we now know is that President Biden has always stated that, hey, I want to increase the diverse spend from 11% to 15%. Now let's go back a little bit. When Barack Obama was president, the full goal during his first term was 5%. He surpassed that goal of the minority spend from 5% and actually hit 7%. We were all excited because we thought, hey, that was going to impact our communities. His second term in office, the goal was 7%. He surpassed that again and hit 9%. And once again, I went across the country talking to business owners, talking to chamber presidents, community leaders across the country. And we were saying, hey, where's the growth coming? Are you seeing your communities prosper? Are you seeing your Black businesses grow? And I was hearing the same conversations. No, I don't know where it's impacting us. So this time we said, well, hey, Biden, we want to know what's happening to Black-owned businesses, not minority businesses. What's happening to Black-owned businesses? And what we heard was that of the $960 billion, and I want everybody to understand this, only 11% of that goes to the entire minority community in this country. And so I just heard us talk about diversity and inclusion. Understand that of the $960 billion, 11% goes to everybody that's a minority. Of that 11%, what we heard was 1.8% went to the Asian community. 1.71% went to the Hispanic community. And the Black business community across this country received 1.5% of the entire spend. Let me say that again. We have the largest number of businesses certified in this country to do business with the federal government. And yet we pay taxes, we vote, we pay tithes and offerings. And yet we still receive the least amount of federal government contracts in this country. That's why I say I'm not concerned about DE&I. It has never been about diversity, equity, inclusion. What I have always stated was, we have this conversation about DE&I and think that it's some mythical conversation. It ain't. It's by you and I. And if we don't understand that the attack is about Black businesses, Black communities, and Black families, then we are missing the boat. We received 1.5% of the federal government contract. And all of these years, we have been fighting on behalf of minority and inclusion. I'm saying we've got to change the conversation about what is now happening specifically for Black-owned businesses. The second one is access to capital. And I know I only have 14 minutes. If you ask any small business owner in this country what their number one concern is, Black, white, woman, female, male, they will say access to capital is the primary issue. But when you talk to Black-owned businesses, they will say number one, number two, and number three concern is access to capital. The affordability, the availability, and the accessibility. We heard that during COVID, we lost in the Black business community 41% of all of our businesses closed. Let me say that again. Between the months of February and April of 2020, we lost 41% of every Black-owned business in this country. That represented 442,000 firms. And it had nothing to do with us being in the wrong business. And I heard you talking about Shaquille O'Neal's businesses. It got nothing to do with that. It was access to capital is the reason that our businesses went out of business. We pay twice the rate for the capital. We get half of what we need. And so it is going to cause us bigger problems in any other community. So access to capital is what we have been working for. And I know I'm all over the board, but I want to say that I heard you guys talking a little bit about Trump before. We all heard and saw and witnessed what happened in Southern Virginia about the tiki torches and the Jews would not replace us. And Black folk around the country were getting upset, talking about, gosh, I can't believe that they're letting these people down here because of them trying to take down the statue of Robert E. Lee. And I've always stated, I want them statues up. I want Robert Lee's. I don't ever want to remove anyone's history, ours or theirs. When you start talking about eliminating history, it is our history as well. I want my sons and hopefully grandsons to know how evil white people were. And when you start removing evil white people, then white people have the tendency to say our history was good as well as theirs was good. That's why I always talk about when we have the conversation about making America great again, I say I want America to be great as well. But in order for there to be a great America, hell, there's got to be a great Black America. And the way you ensure that there's a great Black America is to ensure that you have great Black businesses. The day that they were there talking about the Jews would not replace us is the day, in the same day, that we lost the only Black-owned bank in the state of Virginia. I challenge us to say, are we concerned about their history or our future? We've got to change our mindset and understand that we control the narrative, we control what resources that we have, and when we are more intentional as well as transparent about it, our accountability challenge and changes as well. Our third one is about contracting. I talk to both federal government and private sector companies all the time, and they say, Ron, we do more business with Black-owned businesses if we could find them and they had the size and scale. And so the U.S. Black Chamber has tried to do both, eliminate the conversations about finding them by now creating the only Black business directory in the United States that allows you to be certified as a Black-owned business. Let me say that again for the listeners. You cannot be found right now as a Black firm. You can be found as a minority firm. The only way you can be found in the SBA, the Small Business Administration right now, is if you go find a birth certificate that says your parents, mother and or father, were Negro or colored. How many of us can't find a birth certificate of both of our parents? Some of our parents have been divorced or deceased or never married or don't know where the documentation is, or may not have a document that says my parent was colored or Negro. They may say they were Black. We have challenges. And so the U.S. Black Chamber has stated, I will provide you with your own certification that allows you to say that you are now a Black-owned business. I'm not concerned about your profitability. I'm concerned about your Blackness. And so there are conversations that you and I will have virtually about, what did you think when you saw Roots? How old were you when you saw Roots? What was your emotions when you saw Roots? Questions that will allow us to now have comments and conversations about your historical perspective of your Blackness. Our fourth one is really about entrepreneurial training. And again, I say our businesses are not financially illiterate, which we hear so often. It is really about relationships. It is really about understanding and knowing the things that are the obstacles that keep us from growing and have sustainability. And so the U.S. Black Chamber provides 14 free webinars every month for our members across the country. And for those listeners, you can go to usblackchambers.org to make sure that you are finding out about the webinars. And lastly, about chamber development. So I know I went a lot of places, but I definitely wanted you to understand who we are, what we're passionate about, and how we think, much like this month, August being Black Business Month, but all year is really important for us at the U.S. Black Chamber and our members across the country.
We appreciate that. Michael, you got a question here, or a response?
Yes, absolutely. Ron, we appreciate you being here with us. And as you were speaking, you reminded me of a speech I gave at my alma mater about the lack of opportunities for minority businesses at Auburn University. And the same type of stats that you were quoting were the stats that I quoted as it encompassed Auburn University and them doing business with minority business. One thing I want to talk about, though, is that I want to talk about the SBA, but you mentioned one thing. You said that Black-owned businesses get about 1% or something like that of the
1.5. Yeah,
1.5%. Well, if they really wanted to make it interesting, what is the percentage of population that's Black in the U.S.? Is it 13% or somewhere like that?
About 14.8% we represent.
Okay, so the Black population in the U.S. is 14.8%, and we can't even get what's equated to our percentage that represent the United States. That's the way I draw a conclusion, huh?
Yeah, we have about 18% of all of the businesses that are federally certified in the database to do business with the federal government. So you've onloaded, you've onboarded, the federal government has vetted you. So we know that there are businesses that are out there. There is the second conversation, though, and that is size and scale. We have many of our businesses, but most of them are still sole proprietor. I say they're not mom and pop, they're mom or pop. They're very small businesses, and so we've got to do more of the merger and acquisitions. We've got to do more consortiums. We got to do more joint ventures. We got to do 3 + 3 = 1. We've got to be able to create the size and scale for our businesses to take advantage, because the contracts are getting much larger, they're getting much more complicated, and they're requiring much more size and scale. And so if you really look at our history, the first Black billionaire came from Baltimore, Maryland, Reginald Lewis, my frat brother. And he got there through acquisition. If you look at Elon Musk, who was on TEDx or whatever you want to call it last night with the former president, he never started a firm. He acquired a firm. And I think our future is really going to be around us doing more M&A conversations, because if you just look at what's going on right now between the CHIPS Acts, let's talk about the infrastructure that's happening. These are large. Size and scale. And so we've got to look at how we can't bring our firms together to go after some of the size and opportunities that are available.
I want to give Barbara a shot before we get off of here.
Right. And thank you so much for being with us today, Mr. Busby. But you talked about minority businesses only, having 11% of the federal contracts in this country. Just to be clear, that other 78
That's
percent
great
of,
question. Great
yeah,
question.
please,
Great
please
question.
state
So,
that for us. I
the
know, but I
elephant
want
in the
I
room.
want our viewers to hear that as well, please.
Yeah, the elephant in the room is that only represents about 6% if you look at Hispanics, Asians, and Black combined. So that leaves a large percentage of the rest of the federal government spend. And what we found is that white women, not women,
Right.
that's not Black women, Asian women, that's white women, received over 78% of the spend. So between white men and white women, they receive 94 cents of every dollar that this country spends. And so, Barbara, I want you to understand that as a Black woman, your spend doesn't get counted in the woman bucket.
Right.
Your spend gets counted in the
The
Black
black
bucket.
bucket. Yes.
So, as with all of the women that we've got, and we know that women are the fastest growing segment of new business owners, combined Black men and Black women, we're
Right.
still getting less than 2% of the entire spend of the federal government. Whereas white women, and so I say this, and I don't want to start any mess, but I think we lost a lot of our leverage when they started having the conversation about women versus men and including women in the conversation of minority, because white women said, okay, great, we're minority,
Right.
let us compete. And they've had the biggest growth and benefit as it relates to minority programs.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you
Okay,
for the
Michael.
question. I didn't close it out there.
That's
You got
okay.
time for one more, Ron?
I do. I got about 2 or 3 minutes. So if there's
Okay,
something that,
Michael, go ahead, Michael.
The question I wanted to ask you was regarding the SBA and capital. You know, SBA at one point, they made small business loans directly. Now they go through what you call preferred lenders, and they're majority owned banks that's run by a majority owned board of directors, and they are now given the latitude in order to make an SBA loan to minority businesses, and they're just not doing it. They refuse to do so. So why can we not have some programs to take that back? And on the flip side of it, if you get an SBA loan, the bank turns around and sells it to some private investors for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then if you need to go to them and say, we need to get a modification, a loan modification, they say, well, we can't do it because we sold the loan. Where are the guardrails to make sure and ensure that small businesses, and in particularly Black-owned businesses, are not only getting their fair share of capital, but getting the terms and the ability to stay in business like the other business?
Michael, you act like you've had some personal experience there. We did a project with Rutgers University in 2014. We took two businesses, a Black-owned business and a white-owned business, same credit score, same business plan, asking for the same amount of money, $100,000. Same, everything being the same. Black business owner was a homeowner, was a college graduate, had 7 years of experience, was married with 2 children, asking for $100,000. White business owner, high school graduate, apartment rental, brand new in business, same business plan, asking for $100,000. Black-owned business goes in, spends 3 days going back and forth with the bank, left with $40,000. And we as Black people said, man, let me take this lemons and make margaritas out of it. I'm going to be blessed. Thank you, Jesus. White business owner goes into the same business bank, walks out with $100,000.
Wow.
We pay twice the interest rate. We get 40% of the money. And when we go out of business, they say, well, because he didn't have the business skills. No,
Right.
we never had enough money going up front.
Right.
Secondly, during COVID, we've historically been marketed to by the big banks, the B of A's and the Wells Fargo's across the country. During COVID, they told us, go find a CDFI and make a relationship and get your EIDL loan or your PPP loan. Well, heck, we didn't know those banks. Those banks didn't exist in our communities. And many of those banks were closed themselves because they were dealing with COVID. And so we're telling individuals to do 2 things. One, let's not get caught up in the fintechs, but when the fintechs are available, let's make relationships. And let's make relationships with banks now versus when times get tough. because we know that they are going to get tough again. Third, we got 22 Black-owned banks in the country right now. So, and I'm going to say this, and I know many of our listeners are going to challenge me, but access to capital is not as bad as it used to be. There are challenges where both the federal government and the private sector make it difficult to do business with them. You can get a federal government contract August 1st and may not get paid until January 15th. Wow. Meaning that now you have the responsibility of carrying the federal government's payroll or payables for sometimes 5 and 6 months. And now having to go out and pay that 18, 19, 20% interest rate on a contract where you may only be making 4, 5, 6%. What we were successful at doing when Obama was president was create and implement the quick pay program, where you got a government contract August 1st, you invoiced August 15th, you got paid the following 15 days. There were 15-day payment terms. We hope to be able to re-implement that. But true enough, it is a challenge. And you have mentioned all of the things that the SBA is trying to get away from, but many of those programs were implemented during Trump's administration. We are now trying to back those out. But access to capital is a major concern for our businesses. But Black-owned banks have more investments now than they've ever had. Many of those came after the murder of George Floyd. But the banks are now making capital available, particularly our Black-owned banks across the country. U.S. Black Chamber partners with all of the National Bankers Association, which represents the minority banks across the country. And if you are a business owner looking for access to capital that's affordable, available, and accessible, you can reach us at usblackchambers.org. If you're a Black-owned business and you want to have access to government contracts as well as private contracts, make sure you go to BYBLACK.US, BYBLACK.US. It is a free directory. It is the only place, I shouldn't say the only place, but it is one insured place that the federal government and private sector go to when they are looking for Black-owned businesses. Not minority-owned businesses, not small businesses, not diverse businesses, not inner city businesses, not urban businesses, Black-owned businesses, not Negro businesses, not colored businesses, Black-owned businesses. That's who we represent. We're unapologetic about what we and who we are, and we'd love to have you, your listeners, as members of the U.S. Black Chamber, so we can continue to move our economic agenda forward.
Ron, let me say this. Michael and I both are small business guys. Michael owns several businesses, which is why he has that. That's why you said he sounds like what he's talking about.
I sense that, Michael.
He does know what he's talking about. And so hopefully maybe you guys will cross somewhere down the road.
Look forward to it.
Information here, but man, that's great. Thank you so much. This has been awesome. We appreciate you. Anything else you want to lay on us before you have to leave, Ron?
Yeah, I will say this, and I know I heard you talking about Shaquille O'Neal's businesses. I was in corporate America for 10 years. IBM, Xerox, was a senior VP at Coca-Cola, and left corporate America to go back home to take over a family business. And that family business was janitorial services. My salary in corporate America was about $150,000 a year. My father's business was doing about $150,000 a year in revenue. I left the home in Dallas, Texas, and moved back home to sleep in the same bunk bed that I had when I was in the third grade, and all my friends thought that I was crazy and laughed at me. But over the course of the next 10 years, I was able to grow that firm from 5 employees, which included my mother, my father, my 2 sisters, and myself, to become the largest employer of African Americans across this country. It is not about the business or the industry that you are in. It's about the acumen, the passion, and the commitment that you have to grow that firm. If you have a vision to be able to grow an industry, a vision to be able to grow your firm, you can be successful. And I love the story about Shaquille O'Neal and what he's doing, because he understands you can make just as much money at a car wash, at a chicken place as you can in a technology cybersecurity firm. I think so many young people get caught up in what the latest mousetrap is, as opposed to just making sure that we're going where mice are and capturing in many cases with just cheese and mice traps. I'm honored to be here with you guys this afternoon. Looking forward to having you guys on our show as well. And thanks so much for the opportunity to speak to you and your audiences.
We appreciate it. And
Thank
just for
you.
your information, we both, Michael and I both worked at AT&T in corporate America for several years. I've been in business for 37 years in my small consulting firm. Michael's been in business for several years. Barbara was at Blue Cross. So we understand the corporate world, but we all wanted to work for ourselves. And so
Understood.
we've managed to make that work. So not saying it's been easy, but we've made it work. And
well, congratulations and kudos to you
thank
guys
you.
for all making it work.
And thank you, man. We appreciate
Thank
you
you.
being on here with us. So
All right. Thank you.
okay. All right. So let's see. My closing comment for today. Football season is here and many can't wait. Who will win? Who will lose? What surprises lay ahead? It's funny how those top 25 teams always wind up being the same teams. Has the NIL and transfer portal made that big of a difference? Right now, it doesn't seem like it. I wish you all the best in pulling for your teams, whether that be a college team or professional team. I just hope that you enjoy the season. And we appreciate Ron Busby being with us. It was a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much, man. And that's our show for today. We want to thank the audience. We appreciate you. Thank our G-List guest, Ron Busby. Thank our sponsor, Best Girl Inc. Thanks again to the TWT team of Barbara, Sean, Emily, Michael, and Joyce. And that's it for this August the 13th. Remember, a day without a smile is a day wasted. If you've got an extra one, give one to someone else today. Enjoy yourself. Make every day count. Stay safe. Peace.